Thank you. I really found very interesting this conference. I read some of the paper, not all. Apologize for those I couldn't, whose argument I couldn't read. I agree with the basic argument which went through this conference, also with what Fabrini said right now, that the demo crisis is not simply a consequence of this model of economic governance, intergovernmental method, even if it's more complicated. I think is more blurred, the border between the purely intergovernmental method and the elements of community method, which are part of this model of governance. So it's not just a democratic consequence, but also, as also Miguel Maduro wrote in a very brilliant paper for our Constitutional Affairs Committee, is really one of the causes, the democratic issue, the contradiction between national dimension of politics and EU dimension of policies, one of the causes why this model does not work. So that's really important, I think, this debate, those 2 days about this democrisis and this democratic point of view to try to understand what's happening, what's not working. I think we should start to better focusing how this model has worked so far, which are the basic elements. They started, I would say, in 97, because already in 97 with the first regulation of Stability Growth Pact, which went beyond the treaty provision of 3%, introducing this idea of safety margin. So even if the treaty said 3%, you have to pursue balanced budget. And the concept of structural budget was not there. So it was even stricter, less effective in terms of ways to implement, to make respected, but even stricter than the current six-pack fiscal compact. It was a kind of part of the political compromise which led to accept Italy in the Eurozone and then Greece. So Germany said, okay, you enter, but we now go beyond the treaty, even if they knew that it didn't work very well legally. So the constant attempt to enshrine in the treaty, so then they did the six-pack, when after the crisis of May 2010, they had also to implement stability mechanisms. So we had this new trade-off between EFSF and six-pack, and then fiscal compact, the ESM. But it showed not to work very well, both, I would say, economically, for many reasons. We know that this model produced a kind of bad vicious circle between recession and public and deficit and debt, but especially also democratically. So we continuously had the national democratic agenda influencing the capacity to decide at the EU level with the region in May 2010, but also now. We are now seeing very well how the UK national agenda, the next German election, and before the war, the French election, we are continuously this contradiction between the dimension of politics and the dimension of policy that makes this model economically not very efficient. So it's clear that we have to change path, and already this started happening with the ECB, because at the end, what worked this summer was the fact that the only federal institution used the word that no intergovernmental mechanism could have used: unlimited. So that this magic word that only at federal level can be used helped to stop the crisis. But now, what if market start to ask for this OMT to be really implemented? What if under the current six-pack fiscal compact, sanctions have to be issued to country not respected? What the legal bases are very weak. as you know. And I think that the fiscal compact legal basis is even weaker. So I think that, for example, Article 8.2 of fiscal compact, which calls for sanction mixing procedure within the EU legal framework with the procedure of international agreements of the treaty, will never be used. I bet that it will never be a sanction. So what if this mechanism needs to arrives to the contradiction it has inside? So I think that we have, at the same time, we know that a pure federal change of direction is not realistic. Today, we are waiting for the final decision, but it's very likely that member states will not be able even to agree on cutting, to go beyond the 1% of the GDP as a budget. That the Van Rompuy compromise proposal goes below 1% for payments. Is not enough for Germany because it's elections, not enough for UK, it's not enough for Netherlands, not enough for Sweden. So it's not realistic a federal leap, but I totally agree with the arguments of Fabbrini and also the other Fabbrini. I read the paper on the fact that at the end, the solution of a light federation is at the same time more effective and more respective also of national democracies at the end and national prerogative. So I think that we have to work in the space in between the two extreme models, the national democracy-based model of governance, so union of rules. The definition of Merkel in the European Parliament, she said, a union of stability and of double strength. This new definition that I think will not end in the history books, but was formally, and so the idea of this double level of legitimacy, but the EU level as a level to produce rules, not real governance, not authority, not resources. So we have to try to work in between this model and the model of full-fledged, even if light, federation, and to use the current legal basis, to use the contradiction we every day have to move slowly to the other model. In the Van Rompuy exercise, we have some points which are important. The recognition of the need of additional fiscal capacity, the so-called Eurozone budget, is important as a first time that is recognized that the rules are not enough, that you need this additional fiscal capacity. Of course, it's a striking contradiction. They at the same time say that is needed additional fiscal capacity and then they cut the budget. So, but of course, this crisis could also lead to a kind of two-tier budget, something like that. And the fact that you are going to implement by enhanced cooperation an FTT, and that will be used as a, also in the paper, Maduro and others suggested months ago to substitute the part of the contribution, national contribution to the budget, could be the first step to go toward a more own resources based element of fiscal capacity. So I think that, and especially on the democratic side, yesterday we voted in Strasbourg a resolution calling for all the European parties to appoint their candidate to the Commission. It has been approved by the APP, by the Liberals, by the Greens, so there's been now a broad consensus on that. I think that will happen and will be very interesting to see this new European campaign with candidates, transnational candidates, so it will be something very interesting, and I think that this will strengthen what I think will going to happen in any case, because my personal prevision is that in the next European election we have a higher turnout of voters, because after this legislature, I think people is more aware of the fact that this is the only way they have to directly influence EU decision. The Commission has a lot of margin of action interpretation. Now we are working on implementing the Growth Pact document of June, and maybe they will arrive to recognize the possibility to allow temporary deviation to the medium-term objective. So an interpretation of the structural deficit which is more less rigid. So the Commission can, and it's easier to do if the Commission does that than changing a decision at the level of European Council. So there is a margin, and the Commission has a very important role. So I think that the people are starting to know that, and that will affect their behavior in the next European election. And of course, if we have also the transnational candidates, that will be even more important. So I think that even if everything would suggest a pessimist aptitude, we are to failure of the intergovernmental mechanism of governance, recession, no agreement on nothing, maybe even the banking union will be contested by Germany in the next weeks. So really we are in a very bad moment. But I think that notwithstanding that, the process is a process of evolution, and maybe a future historian could see this moment like as a very difficult and painful transition more than the moment before a crisis of Europe. So I think we have to be aware of this situation, and exactly for that reason, all the suggestion, contribution of conferences like that are really very useful also for policymakers. Thank you.
Thanks. So